If you're a fan of 1970s, 1980s pop culture, vintage video games, D&D, or music and movies from the late 1900s, then you'll find that Ernest Cline's Ready Player One is a novel right up your alley. Growing up with love of science fiction and appreciation for a good underdog, Ready Player One combined the two into an action-packed story. The main character, Wade Watts, is the aforementioned underdog, living in a crowded trailer at the very top of a stack of other trailers. Earth has become a dystopia where people's only escape is the Oasis, a virtual online world where you can be just about anything you want to be. Wade is ecstatic by the fantasy of being the winner of a contest. James Halliday, the creator of the Oasis, launched after his death for the next owner of the Oasis. Having spent years studying and memorizing everything about Halliday, Wade figures out the location of the first key, nearly 5 years after Halliday's death. Turns out it was on the very planet that he's been stuck on. Perhaps this was Halliday's way of giving a kid with nothing a second chance at life, as he had a loathsome upbringing himself. To be frank, Wade exhibits behaviors that are pretty self-centered, which oftentimes shows in not taking into consideration the thoughts and feelings of others. This behavior creates conflict between him, Artemis, his best friend H, and two other contestants, Shoto and Daito. The relationship between the 5 contestants becomes strained, and everyone goes their separate ways, following their own pursuits and continuing the hunt for the egg. Except for Wade. In my opinion, the strain specifically between Wade and Artemis, who had a rocky romantic relationship, fuels him to become further self-absorbed, which makes him even more of a toxic character as he becomes somewhat of a hateful hermit while he's in hiding and pursuing the hunt. Which is kind of odd because he's the protagonist. Thankfully, this doesn't last for the rest of the story. Nolan Sorrento, our antagonist, has plans to dispose of the 5 people ahead of him. Unfortunately, he is successful in eliminating one of them, but in an odd twist, it starts to fix the strain between the remaining top 4 contestants. Nolan's plan gets Wade to start realizing that the hunt is no longer a game anymore, and that so much more is at risk. The Oasis, their lives, and the lives of other users. If Nolan were to win, he plans for the Oasis would further drive humanity into a darker place, as he has been purposely driving people into debt for years, using it as a means to force them into free labor under the guise of paying off debt. With control over the Oasis, Nolan would charge all sorts of fees, driving more people into debt. Now it's more important than ever that Wade finds the egg for the hunt of the contest. Wade figures out that it takes not 1, but 3 people to unlock the final gate. Regardless of how many people it takes to unlock the gate, Wade announces to the Oasis that if he wins, he plans to share his custody of the Oasis amongst his friends. As fate would have it, Wade is the winner and keeps his word of sharing his winnings. This is a tremendous contrast to how Wade was in the beginning of the story, as he showed no plans of sharing the winnings of the contest, and that he only wanted to win for himself. In some ways, Wade had matured greatly as a person, learning how to rely on others, as well as developing into a more altruistic person. And his character development is even more great in the sequel. So if you like the first book, definitely go check out the second one. As I mentioned earlier, Ready Player One is chock full of references to 1970s, 1980s, 1990s pop culture, vintage video games, music and movies, and even some major technological advances, all of them incorporated into the contest one way or another. For older readers who grew up with these or were interested in them, they might be one heck of a nostalgic read for you. Younger readers can get in on some of the action too, as there are some references that apply to more modern pop culture, and even some classics that younger readers may know, like Ferris Bueller or Monty Python. Either way, there's something for just about everyone, so long as you're a fan of science fiction, like myself. It's a well-written mashup of science fiction and all things geeky with a vivid description that make you feel as if you're standing right there with the characters. You may not have the gear needed to go to the Oasis, but with the book in your hand, you'll feel like you can.